the Eagles laying 10.5 points. Tank, a lot of points in this one. The Commanders' narrow loss to the Vikings last weekend. These teams played back in week 3. Eagles won 24-8, but they've been dominant basically in every single facet of the game. Do you see that continuing here, or is 10.5 points too much to lay?
Oh man, like the Eagles overwhelmed the Commanders in that first matchup. That was a game where that front seven, they just harassed the hell out of Carson
Yeah.
Wentz. I mean, they were on Carson Wentz like flies on shit. Like it was crazy. It seemed like damn near every play. Yeah, I mean, there's no other way to put it. And so, can the Eagles replicate that on defense?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they should be able to. I think Taylor Heineke has played better quarterback for the Washington Commanders. That being said, I mean, Jared was just talking about, they had that lead going into the fourth quarter, and then Taylor Heineke, just kind of gave the game away for the Commanders. Team just lost as a whole. So you lose a devastating game like that against a really good team in the Minnesota Vikings, then you have to go on the road and play your division rival. I really don't see
Mm-hmm.
this ending well for the Commanders. I think they go out, they try to play them competitively tough. I really don't like a whole lot of points in divisional matchups like this just because teams tend to know each other pretty well.
Yeah.
And when you look at the last game, what was the final score? 24-8 or something like that. I mean, so
Yeah.
that score actually ended
Mm-hmm.
up under this total right here, 44. Could this game end up being closer? Possibly. Do I expect the Eagles defense to play well? Yeah. If the Washington Commanders get Chase Young back, he's been practicing. Do we know anything about that? Is he going to play?
I was actually just looking that because I think that if you were going to ask me a galvanizing thing for this
Mm-hmm.
Washington team, him back would be, rising tide lifts all boats because
Mm-hmm.
Tank, you nailed it. They got, and I was on the Commanders in the first game, 7 points as a home dog, and it was ugly. I think it was either 7 sacks or 8 sacks. It
Yeah.
was ugly. And I'm not going to say Chase Young's going to have any impact on how well the offensive line plays, but Jordan Davis being
Mm-hmm.
out makes things a little more interesting for this Eagles front. I think Hargraves and Cox have played slightly below expectation. Jordan Davis has been fantastic. Maybe Washington
Mm-hmm.
can run the ball a little bit better. They will have Brian Robinson in this game. They did not have him in the last game. I want to look for a reason to back the Commanders because I think the market on the Eagles has gotten stretched. They're 8-0. I know they didn't
Yeah.
cover last week. I think that's an important point. You saw it last week. You saw the market on the Eagles finally correct itself. They played well enough to win and cover against the Texans, but they made one mistake in the red zone. We had the Hurts fumble and the one drive at the end of the first half where you thought maybe it was going to be a field goal for the Texans, turned out being a touchdown. That was enough. They won by 12. The line was 13. So I think the market's gotten a little stretched on Philly. And as much as,
Mm-hmm.
I'm at over 8.5 wins, I'm waiting for that money to come this week. I think it might be a little bit too much for me to lay the 10.5 because I think the market's, again, starting to become a little stretched on Philly. And
Yeah.
while I love this Eagles team, it seems like we're going to start to see some regression with the point spread down the stretch.
I'll give you
That
one
makes sense.
reason to maybe look at the Commanders plus 10.5 in this spot. I feel like the Eagles have been
Give me a
dominant in
reason.
every single facet of the game, except they cannot stop the run. They ranked 29th in opponent yards per carry. The Texans gained 5.3 yards per
No
carry
Jordan
in
Davis.
week 9. And then you look at the Commanders and what they do with Taylor Heineke under center the last 3 games. They've been running almost 50% of their plays. So they might be able to keep it closer in that spot. 10.5 is a lot of points, and I feel like maybe they could take advantage with their run game. But that would be like the only saving grace for the Commanders here in this spot.
But then
because
think
Eagles
about
have
the
been
game
dominant in
script.
every other facet of the game.
Washington controls the tempo a little bit. You take the pressure off Heineke. Carson Wentz was a sitting duck back there in the last game that these two teams played.
Mm-hmm.
You take that element away from Philly's defense and you turn Jalen Hurts into a quarterback that might have to throw the ball to actually come. So game script wise, I could see this one being tight. I really could. Second time around against a divisional opponent after the first game was an absolute blowout. The divisional games, Tank, that they matter more. They matter. It's like 1.5 games. So this one at prime time, I'm not saying the Commanders are going to win this game, but I can absolutely build a case game script
keeping it
wise,
close.
why this one's going to play out a little differently than the last one did.